G'day, guys. How are you going? Hope you are well. Um, let's cut to the chase. I mean, it was. How would you describe it in one word? I know. Justin Longmuir, the Fremantle coach during the All Stars game against the Indigenous boys last week, described his team as being a bit vanilla. Is that sort of something that we could probably describe this game from our lads, that it was all a little bit vanilla and all a little bit the same. And I know there was some positives, but there was a lot of the I don't like to use the word ugly, but there were I'm going to use it. There were the ugly traits on display. The typical ugly Carlton DNA traits were on display in this match sim, this practice match. And I'll get to those shortly, what they were. There were some positives, and this, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really mean a hell of a lot other than assessing it for what it is rather than what it's going to become. I hope that makes sense. I didn't go to the game yesterday. I went and watched a Coates Talent League trial game at Skinner Reserve in Braybrook. For those of you who know the ground, it's a big ground, and it's got no shade, no coverage. It is open. So I decided to go and watch that, knowing full well that I could then come home and watch our game on the tube. If our game hadn't been on KO, I would have gone along. But I decided to come home, not make the trek to Princes Park in that heat, and watch it on the TV. As I usually do, and I didn't think it was something I looked at yesterday. And you've got to be a little bit careful here, because if we'd have blown St Kilda away, which I thought we probably could have done, given we were missing a few, but they were missing a lot, and they were relatively young. Even if we blown them away, I probably was not going to necessarily walk away carrying on. But I did check, which I often do, because I like to do that. Just get a feeling for how the faithful are sort of assessing it after something like that. And it's actually surprising, really, that there's so many people that say it doesn't matter, it's only a practice game, doesn't care, but you still watch it. Like, I feel like it matters. I really do. And I know last year we were just like pummeled in these two preseason games against Geelong and St Kilda. It wasn't St Kilda, it was Geelong and Melbourne. We were terrible. And then we come out and beat Brisbane in round one. But the first half of that Brisbane game, we were terrible. But then it just sort of clicked in the second half. And but I think it matters. I really do. But how much it matters, I'm not quite sure, because it's just such a long season, and we know that it's all in front of this group. The expectations are really high, and it's all in front of this group. And it's a brutally long season, and what was shown under Michael Voss is we haven't been able to sustain at all in those 3 seasons that he's been senior coach. There's been a glimmer of hope. There have been patches of exceptional form where we've been looking like every bit a top 4 team. And then there's just periods of time where we look like a run of the mill. And we're not the only team in that bracket, we're not the only team. Like, there's lots of teams like that. But if we need to get to that top echelon, things will need to evolve and need to change. And when you leave that game yesterday on what was on display just in this match sim, you just look at it and go, there was so many ugly Carlton typical traits which were on display in this game, particularly once that energy was sapped after the blistering start. We just sort of lost our way, which has sort of become a little bit of a blueprint of this team. So consistency within games and then consistency across the whole season. Now, you're not going to win every game of football, but we just haven't been able to put ourselves in a strong position, okay, at the end of the year under Michael Voss. And that is something we're just going to have to wait and see. If this group that we've got, because it's not a hell of a lot different. It's not a hell of a lot different to what took the field last year. And to think that a batch of really young players in their first and second seasons, and maybe third seasons, are going to suddenly take this group to the promised land and premiership number 17. I just don't know based on what I saw yesterday, but it's just one game. And we can be at times a little bit harsh on the younger players. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that the young guys that took the field yesterday were poor. I just don't see anything in their games that I'm going, that young guy, he's going to be the second, third year player that's just going to blossom. He's going to blossom. I didn't get that feeling yesterday. And this is going to have to probably fall on the shoulders once again of the core group, of the stars, of the blokes who consistently play pretty strong football throughout the whole season. It's going to fall on their shoulders. And whether they have got it in them, we're just going to have to wait and see. But on face value, it wasn't a great display. It was pretty bloody vanilla. And if you're one of the supporters, guys, who went to that game yesterday in 36-degree heat, mind you, made the effort to go along, and you're one of the supporters that cheered, and this is to me a little bit, I don't know, what is it about us, man? What is it about that cheered when Harry, it sounded like watching it at home, we had it was a big crowd. It was a big crowd. And when Harry kicked those goals, the Carlton supporters are carrying on. It was oh, have a look at this. And then when Jagger Smith got that ball on the wing, the roar from the crowd, man. I don't mind support, but where's the balance? You scream and shout at that when everything was going well and look at us. But then when the game finished, people saying, oh, it's only a practice game, it doesn't matter. And then they ignore just the crap. The same old crap, and just think it's only a practice game, it doesn't matter. Well, if it doesn't matter, why do you feel the need to cheer so loudly at a practice game? Surely you got to have a little bit of balance in what you saw yesterday. So I'll go through some positives. I don't think there was a lot, but there was a fair bit of on display once again. And this is us. This is our benchmark. It's the Carlton sort of blueprint. It's our, not benchmark, blueprint. It's the Carlton blueprint on what we've become under Michael Voss. Poor kicking all over the ground. You can't just say inside forward 50. It's been a problem. It's been a problem that last kick inside forward 50. That was on display for the whole game, and you can say, oh, yeah, but it was windy and it was hot. Yes, it was, and maybe that was a huge contributor in this, but it didn't necessarily stop Brad Hill from slicing and dicing through the middle of the ground, or Nasiah Wanganeen Miller. Isn't he an exciting prospect for St Kilda? I know he's been building, but he's sort of good size. He moves really well, and I just thought they looked more polished. And I've said this before with opposition teams, they looked just a little bit more polished with the ball, with the ball by foot. And maybe the system looked a little bit better as well. But that is I suppose, typical of a Ross Lyon type football team. They're really strong defensively, but he does like those players that can rebound from half back and on the wings that can use the ball really well. But the poor kicking all over the ground was on display once again. I just didn't think we necessarily hit targets, and you might say, yeah, it was windy and hot, but I've seen us consistently miss targets under the roof at Marvel Stadium. So it's not something which can be just isolated to a windy day at Icon Park. A slow but hard-working midfield, particularly offensively, and around the contest. I don't think there's any problems with that in regards to the contest. I think, we are a contest-based football team, but a combination of Doc, Chera, Cripps, Hewitt looks okay on paper. There's no Sam Walsh there, obviously. It gives us a bit of nip around the outside, but you chuck in Pitnet into the mix, and that's a head scratcher. The two rucks is a head scratcher. It really is. And once we got Pitnet out of there, and TDK assumed that mantle as the number one ruck, felt like he started to get back into the game at the back end of that third quarter. He started to sort of turn it. He became like an extra midfielder, and I thought he actually played quite well, TDK, but it's a no-brainer to me. It really is a no-brainer, and the continued persistent of that two rucks is mind-blowing. But the hard-working midfield, there's no spark. There's no mid that can come in and then go forward and be a threat, and they're hard to find. They're hard to find a Petrarca. It's hard to find a Degoe. It's difficult to find those types of players, but our DNA through the middle of the ground is hardworking, strong at the coalface, not necessarily pristine by foot, but we can get hurt the other way. I thought they performed okay, particularly Chera and Hewitt got their hands on the pill, which is good for Chera. Went forward, kicked a goal, worked pretty hard. But we know that's our midfield, and it's probably too much to ask a Jagger Smith, who they played across half forward, to come in. I think he only had one centre bounce, and with his size at the moment, to be that sort of bloke to give him some real energy and spark. We didn't see that yesterday. It is a shaky backline. It was a shaky backline last year, particularly we talked about the stoppages situation, scoring, opposition scoring from stoppages in our back half. But there's still, on yesterday, not a lot of synergy. Thought Wiedering was woeful yesterday, but I'm not going to can Jacob Wiedering for a practice game, because we know he's a really good player, but he's more than a good player, but there's not a lot of synergy down there. They don't necessarily support each other in the air. And I thought Cooper Sharman, pretty much a nobody, just gave us the runaround. We generally have problems with those hybrids. And where was our Brody Kemp? Where was our hybrid? He played in the VFL. Like, so much for, just fucking burning up the track and looking like he's, going to be a real factor for us as that third tall and a mobile forward line. We chucked TDK and then Pitnet down there for periods of time. And it was just like, anyway. And Cooper Sharman, he was just too quick, too mobile. And we just, offensively, not too bad. Saab was okay. Ollie Hollins, he's a bit of a deer in headlights at times, but he got his hands on the ball. But I don't feel like I'm looking at that back line at the moment and thinking it's a position of strength for us, and I think it needs to be based on just that yesterday. Lack of pressure from our smalls. Like, on one hand you want Motlop, who I thought was outstanding yesterday. Not so much like because we've seen him sort of play in this manner before, so it's not a huge surprise. His pre-season sort of hype is translated into practice match form against opposition. So I think we can be buoyed about that. I think he is a talent. He's not in the class, I think, at this stage of a Stengel or a Keziah Pickett or a Bobby Hill. It'd be great if he could get to that. I personally don't think he will, but for what we've got at the moment, I think he's clearly our most promising small forward. But you expect him to do that, so who's taking up the slack with the pressure? I didn't see that yesterday. Like I didn't see, and it is hot, it is taxing. It's the first game of the year, but they sort of waltzed it out there quite easily at times, and did put that shaky backline under pressure, and we weren't able to really set up and get that ball locked in our front half. I am really concerned about our lack of spark and creativity with our high half forwards and our wingers. I really am. I think our wingers are hardworking, particularly like our midfield. I don't get that sense of, and Elijah not playing was a bit of a surprise to mine. Maybe his preseason form in the match sim and hasn't been as great. Or maybe they just wanted to give some other players opportunities. But Fogarty, Cottrell, Fantasia, it just to me reeks of being pretty ordinary. And you don't need all your role players to be stars, but you need them to have a bit of an impact. And I just don't see it. And if they're not providing that real fucking manic pressure, then what are they essentially doing there? And I don't think the new mantra is in regards to our strength and conditioning, the speed and power. Maybe we're not going to see that until the season progresses, because other than Lockie Cowan, who I think's a speed and power type player, that's in his DNA. I didn't see it, and maybe that's more around injury prevention. But I think that's the way the game's going, and I don't know. I find us just kind of a bit cumbersome and slow to react and slow to move, and but based on that's purely based on yesterday, just in this practice match. The newest type players, I'm not sold on Binns just yet. I know he's very early in his career. I find him really messy. I hope he can improve. I know he got his hands on the ball. Ball use really poor. Ashton Moyer showed a few signs, but this is a highly touted, talented kid who needs to probably take that next step. But we're asking too much of a second-year player. I'm not quite sure. Ollie Lord is a really good foot soldier. I think he's probably earmarked to take over that inside mid role in time, but there's no wow factor with Ollie Lord. But once again, the second-year player. Really impressed with Matt Carroll. Really think as the game progressed, he pressed up. A really confident-looking kid who got up and read the play really well. I think his ball use was a little bit down. I think he's a better kick than that with that left foot, but it was a little bit down. Nick Haynes, I think he'll be a pretty valuable asset for us. Got a little bit of speed, a bit of experience down there. Jagger Smith, didn't see a lot of him. Couple of little moments, got injured. Hudson O'Keefe came on for a quarter. Can't really assess him. And then Big Harry Lemmy got a half, but I don't think he touched the ball, Harry Lemmy. So that's about it, guys. That's about it for my review of the first practice game for the year. We've got a game against the GWS Giants next week in Canberra. So it'll be interesting to see what players are injured or what players are sore, who comes in, who goes out, etc., etc. Will it be pretty much a full dress rehearsal for our opening game against the Tigers? Anyway, tell us what you think. Take care.